United States Stove Company, Logwood, Model 2421 boxwood stove. Now this stove has been updated. I tried to get it to burn a little cleaner and better. I have installed what I'm hoping to be a working secondary air system in order to have the secondary burn area up above the top of the roof of the stove. Now originally this stove, it's actually a pretty big stove. You can put some pretty big logs in there. I like that about it. But when we got it, it was already installed in this garage. When we got to it, it had fire brick on the bottom like there is now, and fire brick all on the sides and a few on the back and on the other side. But it had nothing up above. It was just open to the stack. So also when we first got to it, it was loaded with half-burnt garbage. So we had to clean all that out first. It took all the bricks out, just vacuumed it out. And then we started it up, and sure enough, stupid me, here's Larry the Lobster. Just thought you'd like to see him. He's kind of cool. I don't know where the heck this guy got this, but that thing's cool. Anyway, you can see where all the rust is on this stove. This whole area just used to get so hot compared to the rest of the stove. I wasn't feeling a whole bunch of heat out the side panels, which on these kind of stoves, I think it should really radiate out a lot. Now they've got a smaller version of this just general size and structure of the stove, and they've upgraded it once. I mean, they upgraded this size once. The smaller version, they upgraded twice to meet the 2020 EPA standards. Now this one, they upgraded it once and it met, I don't know, whatever the standards were before 2020, which weren't very high as far as, you know, smoke coming out of the chimney and all that. So what I did was I added a secondary air chamber, well, not chamber, but pipes inside. They're 1-inch plumbing pipe. I screwed them right in at the on the back of the bottom and the back of the stove itself, the stove bottom pan. So those come up and then they turn this way and they make a right turn, and then I've got a common pipe going this way 90 degrees to them and another common pipe at the front. I think you maybe saw that. Also got a new flue damper. And you can see the pipe maybe, well, you know what, let me get some light in here. There we go. You can see the pipes coming up. There's no holes until you get up there. There's some holes on the sides. I don't know if you can see those two. There they are on the sides. One in the corner of the pipe. I don't know if you can see that one. Right in the corner there, it's peeking through. And then I also bought a piece of this, what are they calling this insulation again? It's a hard board. It's a fiber. What the heck is that fiber? I can't remember, but it's flame proof up to, you know, 1200 degrees or something like that, or 2000 degrees. So I cut that to fit all the way in the back to seal that off. Kind of like what I did with the potbelly stove, the Natty Buckeye. But I used a different material. I used this 3/4 inch thick board, and I coped it in and tried to get it as tight as a fit as I could, and then I left a space here for the smoke to go out near the front. And that's exactly what they do on the smaller version of the stove to get it to pass EPA emissions, because but they fix the burn rate. You can't move the flue on that one. So it's kind of a pain in the ass to use. This one, you're free to give it as much air as you want to ignite whatever you're burning. And you can turn it down. It controls pretty good. And it burns pretty darn good. So I'm gonna light this up and we'll check it out as it catches. Give me a few minutes. All right, I moved Larry. Let me get some light in here. Let's get some light in here. There we go. I can see shit now. All right, here's that board I was talking about. Here's that board I was telling you about. I'll say that one more time, but not really. And then, I don't know, I think I got like 3-inch opening, and it's closed all the way to the back where it used to be open. And I've looked in here when it was burning, and I don't see much flames leaking out of there. I don't even think I've seen any at all so far. So anyway, we'll fire it up in a bit. I want to say one thing about this stove and that other smaller version that they had of this. I had the in-between version. There was 3 different versions of the small one. And I had I guess I had the first version of the small one. And it's it's about half the size, the box of this one. And it's a nice, well, it wasn't a nice little stove. When it first came out, it had a steel plate on the top, which does the same thing as that fiber board that I have on mine, on this one. And then on top of the steel plate just rested on 2 of those, just rested on the pipes that were present in that stove, and it was not attached to anything. And then on top of that steel plate, which also ended pretty close to the edge of the stove, which in my opinion helped smoke billow out when you open the door. But the real big deal about that whole situation was that they used a blanket, cry wool or something they call it like that. It does the same thing as that insulation board in the top, but it's like a wool blanket. It's spun fiberglass or some kind of material, probably not fiberglass. But anyway, it withstands heat, and it's supposed to insulate the firebox, keep it nice and hot inside so that the secondary, the smoke gases can burn off with the help of hot air coming in from the bottom and rolling along the top. But anyway, when you got that one heated up, you could get that thing heated up pretty good. Now, when I bought mine, I went and bought a regular flue damper that I could control, because the one I'm talking about, the smaller stove I'm talking about, was only sold as a single burn stove. You could not adjust the damper, and you could not adjust the amount of air unless you held the door open or something like that, or you come up with something yourself if you really want to make it work. So anyway, when you got that stove hot, that steel plate would warp because there was more heat in the back, so that whole plate would pick up like a big tongue and hit the top of the stove. It would actually warp up and hit the top of the stove, stopping your draft going out the top. I noticed that it was all warped up, so I took mine all apart, and I screwed it down to which were kind of wimpy, chimpy tubes. They were like square, thin-walled tubing, just bolted in, kind of like I got there, but that's like thick plumbing pipe there that I got on this one. So I screwed it onto that, and it wasn't real strong because it just wasn't real strong material. So the screws, it would still warp, and it would like try pulling the screws out. So I never did get around to through bolting it, but I could use the stove the way it was. But anyway, they came up with another version, which was the old one did not have the gasket in the door. They added a gasket on the door to seal it up a little bit. And once you took care of those problems, I think it was a nice little stove, but it didn't kick out enough BTUs. I wish they would have done that exact same thing with this stove, because this one holds a lot bigger logs.